how does a young Muslim today become a man? What characteristics or traits or habits does he need?
That's a really good question, but it's a very weird question for me because for me, I don't even know why you would even have to think about these things, right? To be a man, just be a man, you know, um, in the sense that for me, if you ask me, if somebody has to ask how, I would say study the seerah. I go back to how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how did he treat his wives? How did he treat his children? How did he treat enemies? How did he treat friends? How did he how did he develop the younger Sahaba into students of knowledge? Learn the seerah well, and then learn the lives of the Sahaba radiyallahu Abu Bakr and Umar, Uthman, Ali, Hassan, Hussein, Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Abdullah ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Amr ibn As, radiyallahu anhum, such amazing Sahaba.
You're mentioning very specific people here. Why are
Yes.
you mentioning them? What characteristics do they all have that you're
They all had
finding?
different characteristics,
Okay.
but they all had amazing qualities. Yes, Umar ibn Khattab and Khalid ibn Walid were what we would today call alphas, right? But even Sahaba that may not be very well known for the battlefield, like Abu Huraira, radiallahu anhu, but is an amazing person, has amazing masculine qualities as well. What I'm saying is learn about them because they're the best examples for us. Those Sahaba, those Imma, like the likes of Imam Ahmad, who were put on trial. And I mean, if you read the Mehna of Imam Ahmad and how he stood firm on the Aqidah, amazing. Like that's where we should take our inspiration from, right? Past that, I mean, I was raised, and let me tell you something. I was raised by my mother. My father and my mother got divorced when I was very young. My father wasn't involved in my life much. Um, at the age of maybe 10, 11, I had to be the man of the house, right? So for me, I never even thought about, do I have masculine? How can I be more red? Like, these things just kind of make me crack up, because at 11, I remember somebody's breaking into my house. And I'll take you, you're in San Diego, I'll take you to where I was raised. They've destroyed it now, but you'll see the neighborhood. And there was a hole in our wall, and this guy who was on meth, he was trying to open the door, and we used to have a revolver in the house, and I had to pull it and put it in that hole and point at him. It's midnight, like, or late nights. I mean, I can't really see him, but he ran away. I was 11, right? So I mean, like, to me, it's funny to even think, like, to worry about these things. I'm a man because that's what I am, right? Like that's I stand up for my family. I'm not afraid of anybody. I don't back down because that's the definition of who I should be, right? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "The one who dies defending their wealth is a shaheed," right? So if you're gonna rob me, I'm not giving nothing up, right? So to me, that's just the way it is, right? Like, I don't think about it, right? A man should lead the household. That's just the way it is. That's what الرجال قوامون على النساء. Allah has ordered in the Quran. Men are the caretakers, the leaders above women. It's not up for discussion, right? I mean, a woman has her role in life, and it's a respected role, and it's a great role, and it's an essential, critical role. She's the mother. She has the most right upon a person than anybody else is the mother. I mean, she is the when we say Ummul Kitab, the mother of the book, Al Fatiha, we call it Ummul Kitab. Why Because it's so important. The mother's role is so important in Islam. Ummuhu Hawiya in the Quran. Now, what does it mean? It's because the mother is such a essential, something you return to, right? Is that the word mother is used here, right? And I don't want to get deep into tafsir, but inshallah, I mean, someday when you have more time, right? But that means that is the role. Now, children have their own role, right? Everybody has their role. And Amir has a role, and the one who follows Amir has a role, right? Everybody's important, right? When you got a car, if you got, I mean, what do you got? An Acura? What did you say?
Integra.
Integra, right? You got an Integra. What if one of your back wheel falls off? You gonna drive?
Uh-huh.
No, right? You can't drive with three wheels, right? You need all the wheels, right? So every wheel is important. Without it, the car doesn't go. But now, which wheels is it? Front wheel drive, rear wheel drive? I don't know what your car.
I think it's front wheel.
Front wheel, right? So which wheel guides where you go? It's the front wheels. That's their job. But that doesn't mean that the back wheels aren't important, right? A man's responsibility is to lead in a community. That's what a man does, right? And everybody has somebody above them, right? Meaning, like for the OMF, I'm not the Amir of OMF, our brother Mukarram, if he's our Amir, he makes a decision, we follow it, no problem, right? That's the way it goes. This is how Islam works. We go back to the Quran, we go back to the Sunnah, we look at the best examples in the Anbiya and the Sahaba and the Salaf al-Salihin, and we learn their characteristics. We see where Allah has ordained me to be, and that's where I'm going to be. And we're going to have shortcomings, but that's what I'm going to live by. That's it.
You mentioned a couple interesting things there. And Sheikh Abdullah Duro has this concept of the rites of passage, that every boy needs to go through a certain set of standardized, experiences to become a man. They don't just deserve to be a man just because they have the private
Uh,
parts, so to speak, right?
right. The
Uh,
difference between a male and a man, right?
yeah. One of them that I think is important that he's highlighted and you're highlighting here today is experience with weaponry, whether it's
Mm.
archery, guns, and so on. Now, obviously, we're not, promoting any violence towards any group
No,
or
of course not.
anything like that. But
I mean,
do you think that's one?
100%. But again, like I said, go back to the Quran and Sunnah. If you look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to prepare ourselves, right? To be ready, right? To defend ourselves. And that's something we find in the Quran. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said many ahadith about the virtues of archery, right? Of course, at that time there was bows and arrows. Today we have guns. And just to be clear, I mean, that's a part of the constitution of this country that we live in, right? The Second Amendment is a part of our constitution. Those things that are in the Constitution of the United States that are not conflicting with the Sharia, we defend, right? That's part of being a citizen. And that's our right. And nobody can take that from us, right? So many Muslims that are anti-guns nowadays, I think they don't understand the Sharia. Sahaba had swords, they had arrows, they used to keep them along, they used to bring them to the masjid, they used to travel with them. Never was it an issue. Because when a time came to defend, they were ready. Today, what happens is many Western countries, especially, but also Muslim countries, men aren't ready to defend their families. And when stuff hits the fan, they are unable to then step into that role of being the defenders of the house, which is a man's responsibility, genetically, naturally, I mean, in every which way, right? Even today in America, as the boat is sinking, they say women and children first. You know why? Because men are supposed to take that danger on, right? So if you want to be that, then you have to be ready for it, right? What we see in Ukraine, for example, now they're giving guns to every boy, and they're like, "Hey, defend Ukraine," but a lot of them weren't raised with guns, so they don't know how to use them. Right? Pashtuns were raised with guns from childhood. My children shot their first gun when they were 7, legally, with parental guidance and all that, right? Uh, but we're used to it, right? So alhamdulillah, if something happens, and I'm going to give you an example in America, because people might be like, oh no, we don't need it here, right? When they had the BLM riots, this area, I don't want to mention the name of the area, but you're here right now, is a part of San Diego County. It's not the city of San Diego, right? And in this area, it's mostly Caucasians, it's a white area. I wasn't raised here. um, we had an issue with a young African American teenager and the police, and during the whole BLM kind of focus as it was going on. And he wasn't shot or anything, but there was this issue. And people from outside of this area came in and they started a riot. And they said it was about 1,000 people, it was very big, and they burnt down the police station. And the police backed out. They just said, we don't want to cause this to work, so they left. Now, where we're at, these are cul-de-sacs. They end. So we got a message from the emergency response program saying, look, if you're in this zip code, police can't get to you. If anything happens, because the rioters were on the main street and all the other cul-de-sacs, so the police cannot cross them. So if you call 911, nobody's coming, right? And not in those words, but that's what they told us. So now, what do we do? In America, in a beautiful city, in a very expensive, civilized place, but we're on our own. So I told my sons, look, we have guns. You know how to use them. Get them. We're going to defend our house. We have a wife, we have children, we have daughters. We're not going to let them get harmed. And we stayed up all night and we stood guard. And, we had somebody that came up towards our street. This little anarchist white kid I don't know why he was in the BLM riots, but he was there. And he came up here from the rioters. And I was on my property, in my house, legally within my bounds, I just took my shotgun and said, clap, clap. And that's the international sound for turn around. And he turned right back around and they went right around my neighborhood. And subhanAllah, the next day, I can show you my neighbors here. They're white Mormon neighbors. They were bringing sweets to our house, thanking us. We feel so much, because this is the beginning of the street, you know? So what does that tell you? That even in this time and country that we live in, you need to be ready to defend yourself, because situations will come up, right? And countries that ban weaponry, countries like Mexico, which has some of the strictest gun laws in the world, have some of the highest murder rates in the world. Like, I'll take you across the border in Tijuana. I mean, you can't even, it's very difficult to get a gun permit in Mexico. And the highest caliber gun you can have is a 38, right? And there's only one gun store in Mexico, all this stuff, like one of the strictest gun laws in the world. And gun crime is rampant, you know? Even in countries like Australia, where they banned guns recently, their crime rate and their murder rates actually went up. Yeah, gun crime went down, but that's like saying if we ban cars, less people will die from car accidents. That's true, but if more people are dying in other ways, that you didn't improve the situation. You know? So, in that sense, in countries like China and so on, the government can pass crazy laws. You know, I want to say something a little bit controversial and crazy, but my opinion, I have a right to it. Recently, when Donald Trump was shot at, whether it was real or fake, I'm not even gonna get into that. I mean, I'll take it as face value. It was real, right? I mean, I'm glad he didn't die. I mean, we as Muslims don't believe that people should be shot like that, and I think it was wrong what the shooter did. But it is interesting because it does set a precedence for our politicians that, look, you have an armed nation, so don't go too far this way or that way, or somebody will put you in check. You know, which was the intent of the forefathers of this country behind the Second Amendment. Because not just about having guns to protect your home, it is to have militias to stop a tyrannical government, a government that wants to bring tyranny and oppression to be checked by its people, right? So these things are very important because people, for political correctness, and people for their compassion, and people for getting love from the mainstream media, they start saying things like Muslims are against guns. We're not, and what happens with that is our next generation becomes soft. And when they're soft, they can't defend themselves. They can't stand up, and they can't defend others. We as Muslims believe in protecting innocent life, even if they're not Muslim. This is, if you look at the history of Islam, whether it's during Spain, whether it's during the Crusades, we defended Jews and Christians and others. We protected them. The Crusaders used to attack other Christians who used to be then defended by Muslims. This is history. In Spain, Jews were protected under Muslims. It was the Inquisition by the Christians that wiped them out, right? So
But then we took them even overboard through ships to
we protected them,
the
right?
Ottoman Empire.
It's interesting. I just recently saw a non-Muslim wrote an article, and they had these old scans, which was written documents from people of the Jewish faith that had come to the land of Palestine before, when there was no state of Israel, and they were written documents about how Muslims were taking them in and protecting them in their houses. So this is something that, again, if you can't defend yourself, you're not going to defend anybody else, right? Today, if you want to be a man, you need to be able to defend your house. To me, that's like it's second nature. Like, to me, like, it's not even something you have to discuss. Like, I'm shocked that has to be said. Like how are you gonna walk down a street and somebody tries to like molest your wife and you don't know how to defend her? What kind of a man are you? Like, I don't know. Like, do I have to tell somebody that? Like, hey, you have to learn how to defend your wife? Like, come on, right? Like, it's like me saying that you need to learn how to eat through your mouth. Like, of course you do. Like, that's what humans do, right? That's what men do. You defend your house. That's what women do. They raise households. They're mothers. They're nurturing. Just like I don't think we need to tell a woman how to be a woman. I think she should have that in her. And then if she's not sure, go back to the Quran, Hadith, and it'll guide you. Just like that, a man has it in him, right? But the thing is, there has been an effort to try to demasculine men, to try to ruin the father figure image, to try to ruin that idea of a strong man. And there's a PhD, because I work in the med device industry, and I work with a lot of doctors and engineers and people with PhDs. And this guy was a psychologist, but he was also a medical doctor. Guy's very intelligent guy. So he was telling me, not Muslim. He told me something very interesting. He said, "You know why we have a rise in the trans population?"